Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets, where we decode the art and science of building your thriving coaching business. Let's see what we've got in store today with none other than the man, the myth, the king of the Caribbean himself, Dr. Karl Bryan. Hashtag not a real doctor. And of course, you're truly the Red Dog. Shoots, not a doctor. How are you, bud?
Yo. I'm doing good, Road Dog. How are you doing, my man? What's going on?
You know, as I've said before, I'm living my best life, Big Shoots. That's what's happening right now.
Oh, the gauntlet. Road Dog's dropping the gauntlet, ladies and gentlemen. Well done, Shoots. That's what we want to hear. What is going on? What's so good? Give us the good word.
What's the good word today? I don't even know. I've been doing a lot of more personal development stuff lately, and just sort of came across an interesting definition of success and of what wealth and what the definition of what rich means. And it was actually from the comedian Jimmy Carr, who made the comment of, "You are rich when no more amount of money that you make changes your current lifestyle."
Oh, Shoots. You said comedian, man. I was expecting that you were going to drop a joke. But no, you're getting all serious on us.
See?
Well done.
There it is. So there you go. What about, you got any words of wisdom there in terms of, what's another one? What do they say? Everybody wants the view, but nobody wants to climb.
Yeah. There's one of our good buds, Bieber's dad. Biebs, he's got, in his washroom, he's got, everybody wants to change the world, but nobody wants to change the toilet paper. It's awesome.
That is something I'd expect at Biebs' house for sure. Hey, you know what? Sometimes changing that toilet paper is a kind of a big deal. It's a needle mover. Speaking of needle movers, Shoots, why don't we start off with that? Give me something needle moving that's been on your mind lately.
Oh, Shoots. I was expecting you to start something Zenish. I guess we're going to go something needle moving.
Yep.
Well, I'd say I bought a bunch of new domain names recently. Little bit excited, quietly very excited over here. But, it made me think of this, like your tax system is designed. Your tax system, it doesn't matter where you are, what country, what culture, etc. Right? We get people from all over the world, right, that listen in. Your tax system is designed to reward you for investing, and then it punishes you for buying. And actually, hang on, it punishes you for buying stuff, right? You buy stuff, you end up with stuff. So my question is, are you buying stuff or are you investing? And I hope you are investing with delayed gratification. And if you are, Warren Buffett will be very proud of you. Actually, and that reminds me of something else. I wrote this in an email not long ago, and I got some people commenting back in different ways. But if the government can just print money, why do we pay taxes? What's going on? And by the way, that's a little political roo-ha-ha, Road Dog. So let's not go there. You want something needle moving. I'm going to say this. Don't create a to-do list. Create a to-build list, right? So build out your Facebook ad campaign. Build out SOPs, standard operating procedures, right? Build out a new framework, a new script, a new sales script, marketing assets, brochures and landing pages, etc. Let's call those sales assets. Build your client agreement, build your videos that you're going to post on YouTube and otherwise, build out some audios that you can deliver to your clients, build out a checklist, right? Like a checklist Planes go down from pilot error over mechanical issues times 100, right? You would not want to get into a plane where the pilot didn't follow his checklist, I would imagine. In fact, Road Dog, a few weeks ago, I talked about when you weren't here, like in the ICU, basically they're having a lot of kids, dying in childbirth. They reverse engineered what was going on. They worked out that the doctors were not sterilizing their hands. They put together a checklist and they put together a process, but let's call it a checklist, and all but eliminated the deaths. And by the way, we're talking newborn babies and mothers here, right? Actually, it was the mom specifically. So if you ever wondered why, again, planes don't crash, it is the checklist. Just like self-driving cars are going to all but eliminate car accidents. It is going to take a little bit of time. And yes, there is an accident once in a while. And it's so funny as society, we're so unforgiving of those accidents, right? There's accidents every single day. But when a self-driving car gets in an accident, we got to hold the whole program. It's also going to shut down breakdowns of vehicles, by the way, but that's for another day. But the bottom line, create, build things. Let's just call it. So lead generation is what we hear about time and time again. I need leads. I need leads. I need leads. Remember, you do not need hundreds and hundreds of leads as a business coach. What you need is a powerful demonstration. Dial in on your demonstration, and all of a sudden you become attractive. And what is attractive? That means that people are attracted to you. We've talked about that in the past. At the end of the day, put together your lead generation checklist and then lead people to your demonstration. By the way, that demonstration should probably have a checklist that you follow. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, bingo, bango, bongo, and you got it. But at the end of the day, checklist. But the needle moving thing, let's not build another to-do list that we're not going to get through. Let's create a to-build list. What do you need to build? Go do that. Create leverage, right? You build those assets, it creates leverage for yourself. So that's my answer, Shoots.
You know what? That's almost borderline Zenish there, Shoots. Let's go there next. Let's go. We're already halfway there. We're living on a prayer. Let's go. Bon, make it happen.
We're doing this a little more late in the day. I got to tell you, I'm feeling very unzen right now. I've had a very, very busy day. I'm just going to say, so repeating something I have said many a times, but I do think it's needle moving type advice. Needing nothing attracts everything. Needing nothing attracts everything. So commission breast stinks, right? Don't have that. Needing nothing attracts everything. And then I just follow that up with, and again, I just think it's so, may or may not have had a conversation only an hour ago about this with somebody, one of our clients, but it's like not wanting something, not needing, not even wanting something, is as good as having it. And I think that, that's the boat, that's the sports car, that's the bigger house, that's the BMW, the new BMW, etc. So anyway, that's my Zen thought, Shades. That's all I got for you, bud.
Okay, well, that's you've said that a few times, and it's interesting. It's just interesting watching your progression there in terms of is you used to be the sports car kind of guy, and now all of a sudden it's island life, man. It's mellowed you out some, I think.
It has, Shades. It has. I've done.
Yeah, well,
yep.
I'm scared to ask this next question, by the way, because this could either be very amazing for our listeners, or this could be the biggest standing on a soapbox, I think, in the history of the podcast. But and what is a mistake made in the coaching industry? Oh, dear God. Am I regretting it?
No. No shits. But so you had me too excited. What's a mistake in the coaching industry?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to say this. High level people that will remain unnamed in the coaching industry have been telling us at a pretty high level, what we need is certainty, right? So it's kind of become a mantra of the coaching industry in many ways. You know, you got to move from certainty. You need to be certain. You got to go to certainty. You got to create certainty within yourself, et cetera, et cetera. And the reality is, I don't think your clients or you need to be certain. And if you were to ask me why, I would say certain people tend, actually, maybe I'm speaking from personal experience here, but certain people tend to be a little bit on the um, stubborn side, potentially insubordinate, but like the stubborn side. And like, who, like, is it the strongest that survive? No. Who survives? It's the most adaptable, the most flexible, right? So you want to be insanely dogmatic with your goal. You want to be insanely dogmatic with the destination. But I would highly encourage you to be flexible in your approach, not too flexible, but at the same time, totally adaptable. Again, who survives? The most adaptable. So you need to be adaptable as opposed to certain. Like the richest people I've ever spoken to, I can tell you comfortably, they have one thing in common across the board. And if you were to challenge me to turn it into one word, I would use assertiveness. They're incredibly assertive. They assert themselves into situation, and then I'd assume this is what they do, but they say to themselves, you know, I will work it out. I will find a way, right? They're confident. They're not certain, but they're confident. They're going to find the direction. They're going to find the roadmap. They're going to find the resources. They're going to find the money, find the people, find a way, and they just make it work. You know, they don't do their best. They do what is required, and they do what's required to get there. I've got a saying. I remember many years ago, early on in my career, I wrote a book, and a guy came up and he wanted me to sign the book, and he insisted that I put this. Shout out to Tyler. And he said, so what I said from the stage, I said, screw it up and see what happens. Right? Like again, don't get certain, don't get don't perfection. Perfection is the lowest standard on earth, right? It just stops anything from happening. So anyway, so he made me write, screw it up and see what happens, and then sign my name. So anyway, so that's, I think, the place where, the uber wealthy come from. Like, again, I think Warren Buffett, he says he makes 100% of the decision with 60% of the info. Why? Because it just takes so damn long to get to 100% of the info. So if you just act and then you find out you were right, you find out if you were wrong, you find out if there's some new resources, new people, new money, new whatever that needs to be inserted, you'll be able to get to the destination so much quicker by just starting. Like momentum, it's a force multiplier, right? And by the way, and if they fail, it's all good. You just keep going and you adjust, and again, you're adaptable. They don't attach failure to identity. Okay, I can tell you that. Think Zuckerberg, think Bezos, think Jobs, etc. Had lots of failures. So you look at the story of Amazon, you look at the story of Facebook and Meta, you look at the story of Google, and they've got many failures along the way, and a lot of money and a lot of resources and a lot of time, and they assume these things were going to be absolutely bloody lights out. So when it fails, they don't attach it to identity. I think when you speak to somebody who hasn't had a lot of success, I think what happens is they have a failure. They have they hit the speed bump, they hit the hill, they hit the mountain, they get to the top of the mountain, they see that next peak and go, oh my gosh, right? Or what they do is they attach it to their identity. The uber successful, let's just call them the billionaires of the world, I don't think they do that. Maybe as I talk about identity, something really important. A guy that I know really well, he wrote a book that I read one of the really additions to it, and helped them with some, grammatical errors and context adjustments, etc. Anyways, the book's called I Am. And the translation, what I took away from the book and what I think a lot of heavyweights in our, personal development world will say, be very careful with what you say immediately after I am, right? So potentially damaging. At the same time, it can be unbelievable. So like, what do people say? I'm not technical. I'm not good at sales. I'm not good at numbers. I am impatient. I am in trouble. I am struggling. I am over my head. I'm too old. Right? Remember, Ray Kroc started the first McDonald's at 52. Colonel Sanders started KFC at, I think he was 61 years old. The Red Bull guy, I think he was 62, 63 years old when he got that going. Right. So you're not too old. So if you're saying that to yourself, you got to stop it. I am disorganized. And then you go, okay, well, okay, give me the solution. Like, give me the roadmap. What should I be saying? And I think that the people I was describing earlier, like the uber successful, with the exits and the big bank balances and the, massive amounts of assets, it's I am capable. I am disciplined. I am the guy that will find a way. I am organized. I am consistent. I am special. I'm going to make this work. I am going to find a way. I am getting better might be a good one. Again, just, going to the adaptable, the strong, it's not the strongest that survive, but the most adaptable. I am getting better. I am moving in the right direction. I am getting there. I am moving in the right direction. So anyways, what you say after I am is incredibly important. So mistake, certainty is what I would say is a bit of a shortfall and a bit of a mantra of the coaching space. And I think it should be adjusted a little bit. Shoots. That's my answer.
Love it. Love it. Hey, speaking of books, you co-authored a accounting book, and man, oh man, I remember it was you were heavy into that, right? Like for a long time, you were into the whole accounting stuff like nobody's business. And I still think one of the biggest things that people maybe don't quite understand, a word that gets thrown around a lot, and I think a word that a lot of people just kind of go, yeah, I know what that means, and they don't have any clue. But could you explain EBITDA and kind of the reasoning for it?
EBITDA, yeah. Okay. Basically, okay, EBITDA. It's the profitability of a business without the manipulation of certain numbers like depreciation, amortization. And the reason you do that is to minimize tax. Real simple. In fact, and Charlie Munger says that when you hear EBITDA, just substitute it with bullcrap. In fact, he used a different word, which we can't say here today. But anyways, so it's just look. It's a different way to measure profitability. And stands with a leaning towards cash flow. So it's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. Do that right? Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. So to work it out, you simply you take net income or earnings, net profit, bottom line, right? Bunch of different ways to say the exact same thing, which again should scare you. Okay, again, I've gone down the rabbit hole, and I continue to go down the rabbit hole of accounting. I can tell you, it's a daily. I don't know if it's a daily exercise, but certainly close to a daily exercise in terms of just trying to learn the magic of it, the language of business. You give me a room of 100 people and I say, what's the language of business? 80 hands will go up for sales and marketing, if not 95. And the reality is, and again, I'm channeling my inner Warren Buffett, the language of business is accounting, right? So you just take net income, you take profit, let's call it, and you add back amortization, depreciation, interest, and what's the other one? Taxes, right? So, and then why do you do that? You ask, because companies, I don't know companies that know what they're doing, but like companies, what they do is they use leverage, okay, what's quote unquote debt to grow, right? And then they use interest and depreciation. And by the way, depreciation is a superpower of a good accountant, and amortization to lower their tax position, right? So why do they do that, or how do they do that? Depreciation is a non-cash expense, right? So expenses, expenses lower your tax bill, but depreciation doesn't take any cash out of your bank account, right? So imagine being able to minimize your tax position via expenses, but you don't have to spend any cash to do it. no doubt you don't need to be a rocket scientist or an accountant to see that that would be a good thing, right? So like debt, interest, depreciation, amortization. And by the way, amortization is the depreciation of a non-tangible asset. So think intellectual property or trademark, etc. So it lowers the business's net income, which is bad for the company's valuation or the optics of the company if you were looking to value it or looking to buy it, right? So doing it this way allows like investors and the market for that matter to concentrate on cash flow rather than earnings, right? Again, translation, minimize their tax position, but still get a high valuation. So that is EBITDA. That is why it is used. And again, it's got more of a leaning towards cash flow. So you ask, look, my personal opinion, I don't quite agree with Charlie Munger that it is bullcrap. And again, he says it in a different way, but I do agree you need more information, right? So like it can overstate the value of a company because it's not calculating things like working capital that is required. Why would it be required? A little thing called capital expenditures, CapEx. You got to buy more trucks. You got to buy more lawnmowers. You got to buy more, assets to continue to operate the business. Also, debt obligation and interest costs. Okay, so it's not going to be factored, and notwithstanding taxes, which are going to impact cash flow. Okay, so that's what, Charlie Munger would say. That's not, keep in mind though, that Charlie Munger is looking at significantly bigger companies than what you and I are dealing with. So again, I think that's maybe where there's a bit of a, I don't know, a difference in opinion, because I'm never going to say I have a difference of opinion with Charlie Munger, because you know, at least to fall to the late, great Charlie Munger. Anyway, so, and by the way, depreciation also, I didn't say that, like depreciation in a perfect world is going to reflect, wear and tear and real wear and tear on the assets of the company. Okay, well, that is going to be relevant when you're valuing the company, valuing the company, right? So I think this is a bunch of accounting mumbo jumbo, and it can be a little bit confusing, a little bit intimidating to the untrained eye, like to the average business coach. But I got to tell you, it's really not that hard to understand. Most of it is, very much dialed in on the fundamentals of growing a profitable business. And again, we're in the business of helping people grow profitably. So it is something you should dial in a little bit on. But at the end of the day, there you go. That's and I want to finish that with, again, you don't need to be an electrician to turn on the lights. You need to know where to look, right? And flick the switch. So you don't need to be an accountant to read financial statements. You need to know where to look. So again, don't be too intimidated by it. But at the end of the day, that's what I got for you, bud. That's kind of that's the magic of it. EBITDA has a leaning towards cash flow. So there you go.
Probably almost one could say that the ability to read a financial statement is probably the largest, and probably, which seems insane to me, but probably like the greatest hack when it comes to business coaching and consulting. Wouldn't you say? Like that's where the magic lies. Like that's like, it's like your cheat sheet.
Look, without question. I remember when accounting was something that I don't know, got introduced to, you know what I mean? But when I started going down the rabbit hole, I remember just thinking to myself, wow, how, like, I managed to achieve a little bit of financial success. And my question was, how do I manage to do this with not understanding these very basic and insanely important principles? I was like, my gosh, whoa. But it was exciting. It was good.
You know how shoots? I can tell you how, because it's something you always say about me. You've got moxie. You've got some moxie. There you go. But hey, speaking of hacks, you mentioned earlier about to-do lists and kind of that they're kind of a bad idea. But can you give me your best hack for goal setting? Like help them get what they want, right? Like we always hear this, like, so oftenly worded in different ways, but like give me your best hack for goal setting to make sure that When people follow this, it's just going to truly help them get to do it.
Yeah. Hack for goal setting. Look, I'll tell you this: if your goal is wishy-washy, your results will be wishy-washy. So, what's the solution? Set your goal like a sniper sets their sight on a difficult target. Laser like focus and nothing distracts you. Not a loud bang, not a child crying, just nothing is going to distract you. And by the way, if that's your child and they're crying, maybe it's a good idea to pay a little attention to them, but no doubt you get the idea. But like laser like focus, just nothing but you and your target. Okay. In this instance, that would be your goal. And by the way, I'll assume freedom is the goal because again, like the flywheel of advertising, what does that look like? You put freedom at 12 o'clock and you got why does the business owner buy advertising? Because they're trying to get leads, go to 2 o'clock so that they can get hot prospects, go to 4 o'clock. So they can get clients, so they can get revenue, so they can get profit, so they can get cash, profit and cash, two different things. Got to understand that. But anyway, so they can get cash so that they can build a big business, they can become independently wealthy, and they can achieve freedom. So you come back to 12 o'clock, right? Flywheel clock. You go around it. And then, of course, I ask you the question, does the average business owner, when they buy advertising, get closer or further away from freedom? Because when they buy the ad and it doesn't work and they spend the 12 grand, what does that look like? Not very good, right? So, just ultimately, I think like freedom, really understanding what it is that you're dialed in on. What does freedom do? Why does the business owner want freedom? Freedom gives you options, right? The people with the best lives have the best options, right? Like Bezos, he wanted to spend, I don't have any idea, but $400 million on a wedding. Okay, something insane. And guess what? He wanted to do it. His wife wanted to do it, and he did it. Right? He wanted to buy a monster yacht and staff it with 100 people. Guess what? Bingo, bango, bongo. You might love that idea. You might hate that idea. But at the end of the day, that's what he wanted to do. And guess what? He did it. Or maybe more relevant, you get sick and you need to get some treatment, or your wife or your husband or your child gets sick and you want to take them overseas to get some surgery. Guess what? You got the options. You got freedom. You got wealth. You got ultimately translates to options. And again, I think the people with the best lives are the people that have the best options. At least that's, wealth follows people with clear intentions. And again, let's face it, wealth and options go, they go hand in hand. So what do I always say? If you want to have insane speed, you got to have incredible clarity. So if your game plan, I want to go back to the hack. If your game plan is wishy-washy, your results are going to be what? They're going to be wishy-washy as well. So what do you got to do? What do you got to do? I always say this, you got to decide what you want. And then you got to define it very clearly. And then you got to visualize it. And then you got to obsess over it. You got to think about it morning, noon, and night, certainly during, working hours, just like a sniper lining up his target. Just kind of picture that. You got to get uber clear. And by the way, now that you've clearly defined, and I'm going to dare say decided what it is that you want, which by the way, very significantly harder to do. So be gentle. Remember, you're not looking for certainty here. What you're looking for is confidence. Just bloody do it and get a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. So what you do is you decide what you want and you've defined it. Anything related to, let's call it working hours, that does not make the boat go faster. It does not get you closer to that specific outcome, that specific goal, that specific destination. Guess what? It's a no, right? No is a decision. Yes is a responsibility. What does Warren Buffett says? He says uber successful people say no to almost everything. Like that's their superpower, right? My question is, are you a people pleaser? People pleasers, are not doing what I'm describing here. So Shoots hack, the clearer the goal, the faster the path towards it. And but again, like kind of snipers, you do that if you haven't taken a step backwards to take many forwards. Can a sniper hit an unclear target with things in the way? And now, by the way, if it's too bloody far away, guess what? Even the best sniper can't hit it. So again, it also be, I don't want to say realistic because that's the wrong word to use here, because it should be big and audacious and like massive. But at the same time, it does need to be, billionaire status might be just a little bit too much of a stretch, right? Um, so, so a sniper can't hit an unclear target. It's impossible, right? You just need to be able to, like for you, you've got to be able to dial in on long distances, delayed gratification, right? And that difficult target, like no target, no shot, no hit, you're not going to have an outcome. You're not going to get your outcome. You're not going to get it. The hack is not going to work. So it's kind of shoots. It's a bit of a step backwards to take many forwards. And I'm not talking about anything that you haven't heard before, right? Like, this is not revolutionary, but at the same time, it is revolutionary if you're not doing it. So if you're not super clear and super detailed and frankly, super obsessed with it, you're probably not getting significantly closer to it. Remember, and then notwithstanding, like once you get started, momentum is a force multiplier. The faster you get, or sorry, no, the closer you get to the finish line, the faster you go. So think about somebody running a marathon, right? So the other good news is that when you're really, really dialed in and you're really, really clear and really, really defined, once you get a little bit of momentum and then you start moving towards it, because you won't, if it's a big, hairy, audacious goal, you're not going to get there immediately, right? Like Elon Musk doesn't pretend to be able to accomplish all of this in record time. He understands that it's going to take, an enormous, quite frankly, amount of time. But as you get a little bit closer, you'll start speeding up. And I hope that is, again, motivating for you to get there. But your mind can't hit an unclear target. The same way a sniper cannot hit an unclear target, you're not going to be able to do it otherwise. And there's a good chance that you're aiming at an unclear target and then getting frustrated by not getting closer and certainly not accomplishing it. Right. So, and by the way, I mentioned Elon. I got to tell you, Shoots, and I love Elon Musk and I love everything about him. As you know, like I've read his autobiography many a times, and it is very beaten up book with, highlighters and, noted pages and, folded pages, etc. But I don't know, man. I don't see it. He's starting his new party. I just don't see it ending well for Elon. You can do anything, but you can't do everything. I just see Elon trying to do everything. And I know he is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant human being. But my gosh, is he taking on a lot? That horse, you read his book, right? You see just kind of what a bit of a dog's breakfast he is. And he admits it and he says it, in slightly different words. He must be just up in arms right now. So anyway, I feel like he's a little bit all over the place, and he really needs to dial in on these incredibly multi-billion-dollar projects and businesses that he's got. But he keeps taking on new ones, starting the third party. I don't know if that's a good idea, Shoots. But anyway, anyways, I don't think that Elon currently is like a sniper with his target set dialed in. I think he's letting the noise in the background have him look away from the target. So anyway, so there you go, Shoots. That's what I'm going to say, bud.
So I got one more question here for you, and I hope it's not going to be too rabbit hole-ish because we're sort of up against it here. But when you talk about the why in business, right? You obviously have a very, very powerful why, but just speak to me about why in business coaching, probably more specifically, and how coaches can help their clients understand the concept better, probably not just for their clients, but also for themselves.
I remember a conversation you and I had over a beer, bud, where we did exactly this shit. You remember that?
Yeah, it was the North Star conversation, I believe.
There you go, shit. So, okay. Why? Look, well, there is what you do, there is how you do it, and then there's why you do it, right? And what you've just said, and I agree with, like, actually, the why, it was made famous by none other than Simon Sinek. I think actually the most popular TED Talk of all time at one stage, may not be any longer, but so what does he say? Like every business and their staff know, quote unquote, what they do, right? They know how they do it, but they know why they do it, right? Like not the earnings, not the profit. That's not the why. Why is your purpose? Um, why is your purpose, your cause, your belief? And I guess it would be like, why should anyone care? Right. So your purpose is what people feel and experience when they buy from you, when they work with you. That's what I'd say directly to a business coach. Right. And then my question is that communicated on every call? Is that communicated on every appointment? Right. So again, for a business coach, if you're not sure what your why is, do what Road Dogg and I did, and you just go to your three most painful life experiences. And what's going to happen is you're going to create your North Star. You're going to find out why you do what you do, right? You're going to be able to connect the dots back to why you want to help people at the level that we have to help people as business coaches, right? Like it works every time. You go to your most painful experiences. And because let me tell you, you don't become a business coach by accident. You don't become a coach by accident, because ultimately it's like somebody becoming a pastor by accident. That's not going to happen, right? Again, becoming a coach is something that kind of comes from the visceral level. And then so what Simon Sinek, he talks about that kind of, is he's got like, again, this really, really powerful talk that, again, I could not do it justice by any stretch of the imagination, but he kind of reverse engineered the process that like inspired brands and organizations that people like get tattoos of, and they start with their why rather than their what and their how, right? So just think tattoo worthy brands like Harley Davidson, Burton Snowboards, Apple, Nike would probably fall into that category. They think the Yankees, the Dallas Cowboys, the Toronto Maple Leafs, Playboy falls into this. That tattoo is, many, many places. So, and these are, people and brands that I've kind of, written about and kind of reverse engineered a little bit. But Apple is probably the best example. And if they were like everybody else, they'd say, what? Apple computers are amazing. They're designed by incredibly talented and incredibly great people. They're simple and they're easy to use for even the most novice of computer users of any age. Want to buy one? Do you want to buy one? Right. And that is how most people would create like what we'll call a marketing message, right? Well, how would that sound? Like, we are the best accounting firm. We're talking about accounting today, right? We employ the best. We will save you tons of tax. We will do all the work for you. You all but not need to lift a finger. Do you want us to do your taxes? And no doubt, like, that's not exactly inspiring in any way, right? What doesn't it do? It doesn't tell a story. And by the way, the greatest speech of all time is what? None other than Martin Luther King. What did it start with? 4 words. What are those 4 words? You probably already know, but it's I have a dream. What did he not start his talk with? I have a step-by-step roadmap. I have a step-by-step game plan. I have a step-by-step set of instructions that you can follow. That's not the way he did it. He started with I have a dream, the most famous speech of all time, right? He started with what he believes. My question is, when you talk to the accountant, you talk to the business broker, you talk to the business owner, when you start your talk at the Chamber of Commerce and you've got 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours up there to talk, what are you starting with? Something really hard hitting. And I got to tell you, your story is what is going to move people. And by the way, so Apple, what do? They say something to the effect, and again, I'm probably making a meal of it, but it's like everything we do, we believe at Apple in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently, right? You'll recognize that. We challenge the status quo by making our products beautiful and designing them in a beautiful way. They are simple to use. They are user-friendly. We just happen to make the world's best computers. And do you want to buy one? right? So basically they reverse engineered the order of the message and they started with why and what they believe as the starting point as the main theme, not really great computers, really great price point, going to last a long time, 30-day money back guarantee, etc. 3-year warranty. That's not the way they started it. They started it with their why and how they believe in challenging the status quo and how they think differently. And again, challenging the status quo being kind of the uber bit. And by the way, Nike do the exact same thing, right? Like you watch a Nike ad, you won't even see a pair of running shoes with consistency, right? They're basically inspirational 30-second spots, right? And by the way, they leverage celebrity in a very meaningful way. So it's the LeBron James and it's the tennis player, etc. So my question would be, how do you do it? We're talking to a business coach. We're going to our why. You got to create that North Star. You got to create that story. You got to create that why is it that you do what you do? And it's, yes, making these businesses significantly more profitable and allowing them to have some time off. But where does it come from you? And again, your 3 biggest challenges that you've ever faced is where you would go. So again, how do you do it? Does the restaurant have the story of the restaurant on every table? Does it tell the story about the chef behind the grill and in the kitchen? And does the chiropractor tell a powerful story about himself or about his dad and the challenges that his dad faced later in life that could have been reversed, that could have been stopped, that could have been halted as the result of getting an X-ray, getting his back cracked, coming to see a chiropractor on a regular basis? Because then the chiropractor will say, no, I don't want to do that because nobody wants to hear it. But the truth is they absolutely do want to hear it. And yes, it's going to take a little bit of time, but it doesn't need to take that much time. A couple of minutes you can deliver a really, really powerful story. And by the way, they'll get a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, tighten it up, tighten it up, tighten it up until they can deliver something quick, tight, and simple like Apple does in just a couple of sentences that really, really speaks to their ideal clients. I always say chiropractic is like anti-aging on steroids. You walk behind somebody who's 80 years old, and there's a really, really good chance you can see that they're 80 years old by the way that they're walking. Well, so Botox and all that sort of stuff is what we think about anti-aging. I got to tell you, you got to be able to touch your toes. You got to do some stretching. You got to go see a chiropractor. Anyway, so I think there's a powerful story that they could tell about themselves, about their family, about their father, about their mother, etc. But and by the way, and everybody likes to hear a good story, especially one that is emotionally charged, right? So anyway, shoots. And also what it will do is deepen the relationship with their clients times 1,000, because now they feel like they really engage, they really understand. They really got to know this chiropractor, this restaurant, this business coach. So what's that going to do? That is going to increase conversions, and it's also going to increase like retention and repeat business. Remember, repeat business equals profit. There's 2 rules of business. You got to get clients, rule number 1, and rule number 2 is you got to keep clients. Get clients, keep clients. Rule number 1, rule number 2, it's that simple. Telling a power, look, it worked pretty well for Apple. It worked pretty well for Harley Davidson. It worked pretty well for Burton Snowboards. It could work pretty well for you. It could work for your clients. So anyway, shoots, that's what I'm going to say. That is my going to why. Very, very powerful. People talk about it, shoots. I think you'd agree, but they seldom go there. And then they tell their story and their why over and over again. And they go, nobody wants to hear this. And the reality is that, no, you don't want to hear it. Your client absolutely does.
And
so anyway, that's my answer, Shoots. What do you think?
And that's a super important point right there, is just, it's not what you want, it's what your clients want. And your clients want to be able to relate to you and get to know who you are, because you are a business coach. It's you are the difference. You are the reason that you're different from every other business coach.
Why do you do what you do? Yeah. Why do you do what you do? And again, when you deliver your coaching at the highest level, they are going to feel it. That's when you know you're doing it right. So there you go, Shoots.
Well, there you go, Shoots. I don't think you can end on any better note than that. right? So why do you do what you do? Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Business Coaching Secrets. Hey, if you're not on the inside and getting access to the pre-show, you aren't getting Karl's daily emails, or you just want more information on how to build, grow, and scale your coaching company, visit focus.com. Please subscribe today. Do yourself that favor. And also, if you enjoyed the podcast, please like and subscribe, and also share with a fellow coach as, hey, we're trying to leave our impact on as many coaches as possible in this industry. And while you're at it, please feel free to leave us a review. That is it for another week. We will see you on the next episode. And remember, folks, progress equals happiness. Take care, everybody.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at focused.com.